Hello. Yeah, say hi back to me. Hello. Hello. Neat. I'm Jesse Davis. I work for MongoDB in New York. I'm here to talk to you about mentoring. I'm really excited to talk to you about it. It seems to me, a particularly advanced conference full of people who are really good at what they do. But being good at what you do isn't enough for the highest level. You also need to be able to raise the skills of other people. You need to be able to teach. You need to be able to guide people so they progress to your level too. I wrote this talk because I was inspired by this quote, that mature engineers lift the skills and expertise of those around them. So this is John Alspaugh. He is the CTO of ETE now. And it's this wonderful essay full of gems called On Being a Senior Engineer. And by the way, at the very end, I'm going to share a link which links out to everything, so you are free to snap, but you don't have to. Alspaugh goes on, he writes that generosity of spirit is one of our core engineering values at ETE, but also a primary responsibility of our staff engineer position, a career level position. These engineers spend the time to make sure that more junior or new engineers unfamiliar with the tech or processes we have not only understand what they are doing, but also why they are doing it. Teaching to fish is a mandatory skill at this level. So this is important to hear, that this very powerful guy who's in charge of the careers of people like you and me, whether we're promoted, thinks that mentoring, demonstrating this ability, is a mandatory skill to advance. So what is it? Mentoring comes from the Odyssey. It's a Greek ballad about a warrior named Odysseus who had spent 9 years fighting in the Trojan War, and then through a combination of terrible navigational skills and bad luck, it took him 9 more years to sail back home to Ithaca. So when he left, his son Telemachus was a newborn and grew up to be 18 years old. And growing up without a father, he was unable to mature into the warrior that he needed to be. And as a consequence, a bunch of frat boys took over his house. The translation calls them suitors. These frat boys ate all the food, ordered a bunch of pizzas, didn't pay the bill, drank all the wine, harassed Penelope. And Telemachus didn't have the courage and maturity to kick them out. He was literally unable to lift his father's bow against them. The goddess Athena, seeing this crisis, came to Earth as mentor, a disguise she took on of an older man who guided Telemachus around, introduced him to great warriors and kings, taught him the skills and confidence required to mature into the male role of his time. So from this story, we can learn 2 things. One of them is that a mentor is not somebody who ments. A mentor is a person, and that means that mentee is not a word. The person whom you are a mentor for is your apprentice or your protege or your Telemachus. So whip that out at the next staff meeting. The other thing to learn from this is that being a mentor is an awesome responsibility. It is worthy of a goddess. So take it seriously and do it well. Why would you want to take on such a grave, holy responsibility? Well, one of them, as we saw, is that it's really important to your career. And it's also, of course, crucial to their careers. Having the right mentor at the right time is I think, more important than where you went to school, your GPA, where you first worked, what language you chose. That was certainly true for me. Having a couple of great mentors at key moments has made me the coder that I am. And it's also crucial for the future of your company. You know, the hiring crunch, it just lasts and lasts and lasts. And we all need senior engineers, but you cannot rely on being able to hire as many as you need. The only way to get senior engineers reliably is to grow them. And the only way to grow them is to mentor junior engineers. And the same goes for our industry as a whole. The next generation of open source maintainers, innovators, startup founders, all of the people who are going to lead after we're retired, we have to train them. And the only way to do that is mentoring. It's also crucial for the future of our industry as a fair and just place to work. I found this quote in the National Center for Women and IT report. It said that technical women identify the lack of mentorship as a key barrier to their retention and advancement. And I'm sure this is true for all underrepresented groups in IT. So if you're in a position of privilege or of seniority, mentoring is a concrete and effective way to make our industry fairer for everybody. Now, you all came into the room, so I imagine that you have some motivation. You don't need me to exhort you to be good at mentoring. You're here to learn how to do it well. My expertise in the field derives primarily from having been a complete failure at it. This happened a few years ago when I had a pair of interns working for me, and I did such a bad job mentoring them that they were actually taken away from me, assigned to a different mentor. I felt terrible, everybody was mad at me, and I never ever wanted to do it again. So how did this go so poorly? In retrospect, there were a bunch of warning signs that I failed to recognize that should have told me that the prerequisites for a successful internship were not in place. So the internship began with a colleague of mine named Gary. So I work for MongoDB. Our customers use our database for big data applications. And Gary said, let's do something cool with big data. And then we'll get some tips and some results and some software that we can share with our customers. So, and also, Gary said, I don't personally have time to guide this project this summer. Hey, Jesse, how about you do it? So that was the first problem, is that the original visionary was absent. And you really can't run a mentorship this way. The mentor need not be the visionary, him or herself, but the visionary must be present. The other problem, as you can probably hear from the story, is that something cool with big data is not a clear goal. And without the visionary present, I was unable to clarify it. So I thought, okay, we'll run the internship agilely. I don't really know what agile means. It turns out it doesn't mean not having goals. But I thought, we'll figure it out as we go along. We'll get some data and we'll just play with it and we'll come up with some objectives from there. So my interns arrived into this unpromising scenario. And Daniel and this young woman named Sweet, they were really skilled and really smart. Daniel was a CS major with a lot of data background. He already knew Hadoop. Sweet was a double CS and finance major, so they were comfortable with data. And they started to download some data sets, write some code, get some results. They were producing a lot of work. But the problem was, I'm not a data guy. I don't know anything about this. I looked at their Hadoop jobs and I said, well, that sure looks impressive to me, but I don't actually know if it's any good or if the results are correct, because this is not my expertise. And so between my prior problems with not having the prerequisites to be a good mentor and the fact that I had no expertise in the thing that they were working on, everything was just going terribly. And I didn't want to admit it, but I knew it. I felt really bad. And I responded to this bad feeling by actually hiding from my interns. Like, I worked from home a little extra that summer. When I was in the office, I took the long way around to get to the bathroom to avoid them. And week after week, I would be in meetings with the people overseeing the Mongo internship program, and they would say, Jesse, week after week, we hear from your interns. You're not giving them enough guidance. You said that you would come up with goals midway through. Where are they? When are you going to get this thing on track? And I kept saying later and later, and pretty soon I was just running down the clock, you know? I just wanted the thing to be over. I felt so terrible. I felt like I was a little boy being attacked by a snake, and I couldn't defeat it, and neither was I permitted to let it go. And I was so relieved the day that they said that they were taking my interns away. They assigned them to my colleague, Mike O'Brien, and he did a great job. He managed to come up with an okay outcome for this total disaster that I had handed to him. He assigned them to an existing project. He canned the thing that wasn't working, this like something cool with big data idea. He just threw it in the trash. And he gave them a set of features to implement and was able to evaluate their performance. And Daniel came back and worked with us full time at the end of it. But if not for him, the thing would have been a total failure. So I'll leave you with that. One of the great generosities that Mongo has shown me is that they actually didn't let me give up. That very fall, they assigned me another apprentice, a young woman named Amalia Hawkins. She came to work for us right after graduating college, and she was doing this rotation program that we do at MongoDB, where for 6 weeks each, a new grad works on 4 different projects and then chooses at the end where they want to settle. So Amalia, for her first rotation, she worked with me on my expertise on PyMongo. And we had a great time. She produced a lot of code, she learned a lot, she gave me really high marks. I ended up feeling like I could actually do this thing. I felt like I could actually defeat this Python. So why did we have this amazing turnaround? We had the prerequisites for a successful mentorship. Basically, for every one of those warning signs that I ought to have recognized, there was an opposite positive sign that this thing was going to go well. So Amalia was working on PyMongo, my code that I had been working on full-time for years. So I was an expert on this. Whenever she asked a question, I had a pretty good idea of where to look. And whenever she submitted a patch, I felt totally confident evaluating whether it was correct or not. And that meant that I could concentrate, because the technical stuff was taken care of for me, I could concentrate on being a really great mentor to her. The other thing is that because PyMongo is an established project with a backlog of bugs and a roadmap of features, we had lots and lots of clear goals, and we could pick and choose. We could pick small things for her to start, And then as she gained confidence and momentum, we could give her bigger assignments. It was easy at any moment to determine if she was on track or not. And then finally, the visionary was present. So my boss, Bernie Hackett, is the maintainer of PyMongo. He owns its roadmap. He knows where it's headed, and he could evaluate not just are Amalia's patches correct enough to fix the bug or implement the feature right now, but also do they help PyMongo stay on track toward its long-term objectives. So we had all of these pretty technical, positive prerequisites. And besides that, Amalia and I, we just liked each other. And we enjoyed working together. I almost looked forward to being interrupted by her questions. And in retrospect, I saw that one of the things that had gone wrong with me and my interns was that we just never clicked. I would even say I like them, and I think maybe they liked me. We certainly respected each other, but we just didn't like working together. It was always a little awkward. And that meant that we were unable to overcome the deeper problems because we didn't click enough to actually work things out. I think we tend to underestimate this because we work with unfeeling machines, but our feelings are crucial. And if you don't click with somebody pretty quickly, I think that any mentorship program needs a process in place to gracefully reassign mentors and apprentices. Maybe you know a way to create simpatico or to predict if it will be possible. For me, I think you just need a way to handle it without any shame when it's not there. But with me and Amalia, it was great. I supported her. Oh, I'm not there yet. The first part is lessons learned. So when I was putting together this talk, since it had been such a success with me and Amalia, I asked Amalia, what did she see me do that had worked really well for her as a mentor? And she identified some character traits, some behaviors that had worked really well. So one of them was that anytime she asked a question, I at least appeared eager to help, which is almost as good as actually being eager to help. And the reason why this is so important, even though it's painful to be interrupted all summer, it's really important to be eager to help because there's no value generated when an apprentice is blocked. This is another thing that we overestimate is people should be self-starters, should be able to work independently. You should have, tried 10 things before you ask a question, and it's complete bullshit. There's no value generated by a blocked apprentice. If Amalia blocked, she wouldn't be learning anything, she wouldn't be producing anything, I wouldn't be providing any value to her as a mentor while she blocks, and I wouldn't even be evaluating her skill, her aptitude for the job. Whether you block for a day or an hour, I think it's kind of random in this situation. Maybe later, but if you're somebody's mentor, they should never block. So you need to reduce as much as possible the barriers to her asking you a question. And one of them is to be eager to answer it. Another thing she said I did was I was happy to admit when I didn't know. And this serves two really good purposes. One of them is the same as being eager to help. It lowers, by modeling that I'm totally comfortable with saying I don't know, it means that she too should be comfortable saying I don't know, I need help. The other thing, though, is even more valuable because when she doesn't know and I don't know, that's the moment that you can actually teach problem solving. This is like the golden hour of the mentorship. Even if the mentorship lasts a whole summer, there might only be a few moments that are like this, but they are the purpose of the whole thing. Because when Amalia doesn't know and I don't know, and we sit together and we figure it out together, that's when I can teach problem solving. Just about anything else Amalia could have Googled or read in a textbook or learned in a class. But problem solving is the thing that you and I have spent years and years and years building up our ability at, and it's almost entirely intuitive. Therefore, it cannot be explained, but it can be taught. And the way to teach it is to do it together. And the way to do it together is this moment, when she doesn't know and I don't know. So it was this huge success. We had this great relationship. We became friends in a way that's lasted. I was able to support her by teaching her what she needed to know in her first gig as a professional. She supported me. She wrote great code that's still used today. She gave me high marks that led a few months later to my being promoted. And I felt like we developed this symbiosis where we could join into battle together and overcome just about any challenge that was thrown to us. So from this, I learned that you don't need to be a great mentor. You can design a mentorship to succeed. And so that's what I did the following summer. I came up with a proposal for an intern project, which is something that I did not think I was going to be willing to do. But I had gained enough confidence that I actually could succeed. So the project was this. There's this third-party MongoDB driver. It's called Monary. And it's specifically for Python data scientists. It downloads MongoDB data into NumPy arrays, which is this data format that data scientists use to analyze stuff in Python. And because Monary is specialized, it's incredibly fast. It can easily do over 1 million rows per second. But its maintainer had moved on to other things, and the project was stagnating. So I thought, let's get 2 interns, and let's revive Monary. And fix a bunch of bugs and add some features and make it into a first-class driver. So the first thing that was going to work about this was that it's a MongoDB driver written in Python. I know how those work. It also had a lot of C code, so I recruited my colleague Jason Carey, who is a C master. So together we had all the expertise we needed to guide this project. The other thing is that since it's an existing project and it's in an existing genre, MongoDB driver, it's got a whole roadmap. It's got existing bugs and features that we can add. And we got together with the author, David Beach, before the internship started, and we laid out a roadmap. What do you think are the most important goals to accomplish this summer? The other good thing about having David Beach on is that he's the original visionary. And he agreed to meet with us by Google Hangouts once a week, him and the 2 mentors and the 2 interns and the visionary, and just do a status check-in. And that made sure that the ways that we were implementing these new features were part of his original vision for the project. So with all of these prerequisites in place, the thing was a total triumph. Kyle Suarez and Matt Cotter, the 2 interns, they showed up and they immediately knew where to get started. They met David Beach and they fixed a bunch of bugs, and then they started to tackle big features. By the end of the summer, David was thrilled. He had received and accepted a bunch of really high-quality pull requests that revived his project. The project was more useful than it had been before, and that meant that our database, MongoDB, was more useful for data scientists. Kyle and Matt got a talk about their work into Pi Gotham, so they got their first open source conference speaking experience. They accepted offers for full-time employment, so we got 2 talented young engineers when they graduated. I validated that I could succeed as a mentor. The amount of value that was produced out of this internship was really extraordinary, and then continues to kind of compound upon itself for the years since. It's been one of the most successful things I've done in my career. So let's say that you believe me, that this can be a really valuable thing to do with a lot of payoff for a lot of people. And you believe that, for me at least, it was possible to learn how to do it. Maybe you still have some reasons not to. I'm going to shoot them down one by one. So the number one excuse for me, and I think for a lot of people, is that you can't or you don't want to be a mentor because you're an introvert. There's a lot of us. I'm certainly introverted. But it doesn't mean that we're bad with people or that we don't like people, right? There are lots of social situations in which we excel. For example, I like public speaking because I'm in charge, it's predictable, I can prepare. We're also good at a lot of the social interactions that comprise a mentorship. It's small groups or it's one-on-one, it's directed, you can prepare. And additionally, an introvert has a lot of superpowers as a mentor. We tend to be unusually perceptive because we're quieter. And that might make us particularly good at drawing out a shy young coder who doesn't know anybody, who's uncertain. It might be more painful for us than for an extrovert to take on responsibility for having a productive social relationship, but some of us are superpowered at it because of our introversion. Another excuse might be that you're a good coder but a bad teacher. You don't know how to explain what you know. And like I said before, the whole point of the mentorship is to teach what can't be explained. It's only by working side by side, master and apprentice, that you can really teach the craft of writing code. So you don't need to explain it. You just need to guide somebody. Another excuse might be that you've been burned in the past. And I know that that can be more painful than just about any other failure. My failed internship certainly hurt a lot more than any bug that I've released or any job I didn't get. But I could recover, and so can you. Probably what happened is not that you're innately bad at this, but that you didn't have the prerequisites in place. You just had a stroke of bad luck. But if you know how to recognize the warning signs and how to get the prerequisites in place, you can set yourself up for success. And you know, even if you believe that you create a lot of value, that we need you to save our industry's future, and that you can be good at it, you might still just say, it doesn't inspire you the way coding does, right? You don't care. And if that's your excuse, I can really only appeal to authority. As far as I know, the goddess Athena does not still descend to teach young people how to code. So it's up to you and me. And if we don't take on this responsibility, Athena will be mad at us. And Athena is a goddess who is very, very dangerous when she's mad at you. So I'll leave you with a thought about history. This is a Roman bas-relief. It's an image of Athena teaching Jason and his Argonauts to build the Argo, the fastest ship ever. Athena, in addition to being the goddess of war and wisdom, also invented weaving. And that's what she's doing here on the left. She's put down her shield, and her owl is hanging out behind her on a pillar, and she's got her helmet pushed back, and she's teaching Jason here how to hang a sail. And this is how crafts have always been taught. The thought that you can rely on a university to teach people a craft is a recent and repeatedly disproven hypothesis. Think about the last time you worked with somebody on his or her first day out of school. Like, they don't know the craft. This is how the craft is transmitted. And if there's going to be another generation of coders, they need us to mentor them so that they can learn how to actually do stuff. It'll advance your career. It's crucial for their careers. It's necessary for the future of your company and our industry, both for us to continue to innovate and for us to become a fairer industry to work in. And in my experience, it's scary, it's risky, it's hard work, but when you succeed, the satisfaction is really the best of your whole career. Thanks a lot. Question?
What would you say about the time requirements of being a mentor? Institutional and personal, you know.
Yeah, it's very time consuming. And that's one of the painful aspects, because I like to code more than I like to mentor. And so losing that time, and especially that uninterrupted time, it's hard. But you need your company's buy-in that mentoring interns is the only way to get junior engineers, and mentoring junior engineers is the only way to get senior engineers. So if you're going to still be around in a few years, you need to invest the time now in growing those future staff. And then you also just need to make the willingness for yourself. And for me, I've found that the right way to do this is to go in and out of it. So one summer on, one summer off. And then eventually as well, if you've had a series of successes and you have some kind of theory about how you achieved them, then spend a little time meta-mentoring so that you're not the only one with this skill, which is something that we're starting to do in the last year.
I'm really interested to find out what the long-term impact of the people that you mentored is. Have they gone on to mentor other people because of the experience that they had with you? Like Amina, was that her name?
Amalia.
Amalia. Like, did she go on to mentor someone else because she had such a great experience working with you and sort of try to perpetuate that cycle?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So Amalia and I last summer decided to pair up and mentor an intern. And that gave us a bunch of advantages. It taught her to mentor, but in a safe environment in which I, the meta-mentor with a few more years' experience, could guide the project overall and avoid any missteps and recognize any warning signs.
How do you account for variability in the skills and abilities of your apprentice? What if your organization was not as good at hiring rockstar interns as Mongo?
We do our best. There's this great talk by Jacob Kaplan-Moss about how we're all mediocre, and which I've really taken to heart. So I'm a mediocre programmer, and we hire more like me. And some internships don't work out. That's sort of the point of the internship. It's a trial period. But if the intern has potential but is struggling, mentorship is the way to see that and catch that. And for that, it requires a lot of like risky, emotionally difficult honesty of saying, for example, I see that you have a tendency to not ask me questions until you've already wasted 2 days. You need to fix that. Or you repeatedly gloss over the fact that you don't know the difference between threads and processes, and you just keep muddling past that without really addressing that gap in your knowledge. Let's read this chapter of this textbook together and fix that. So as long as the intern is in the right field and is worth mentoring, it's our job and we're in the position to fix that problem.
What percentage of your interns do you actually hire after an internship?
It's very high. I've heard 80+%. And that suggests to me that the pre-internship screening is quite robust at MongoDB. Obviously, those 20% who don't work out, it's a good thing that they didn't work out as interns rather than as full-time employees. So there is still a filtration value to the internship, but I think that more important than that is the opposite, that by having an internship that's fulfilling to them and shows that MongoDB is a place that they can grow as professionals, it convinces them to accept our offer when on the 80–85% of the time that we extend it. All right, I'll end it here. I forgot to put the link in the slide, but it's easy so you could just remember it. It's bit.ly/mentoring, bit.ly/mentoring. And if you go there, it has a whole written out version of this, including links out to everything that I quoted. Thanks a lot.